So I'm going to spend a few minutes telling you about what we've done, what we're doing, and a few minutes telling you about what we think the future is going to be. How many of you are homeowners here? I'm sure many of you are. How many of you would like to raise money based on the equity of your homes, but without having to take on more debt? In other words, how would you like to lock in some of the value that you've been paying off, but without having to go back to the bank on bended knee, fill out more forms and beg for some of their capital? So that's what we provide at QuantmRE, and we use the blockchain and cryptocurrencies to do that. And we solve three major problems with our platform. The first problem is enabling homeowners to tap into the dead money or the equity that's locked up in their home without taking on more debt. The second problem that we solve is the problem of lack of intrinsic value behind cryptocurrencies, which explains a lot of their volatility over the past 2 years. We've built a cryptocurrency that's backed by real estate assets. And the third problem that we solve is access to real estate investments across the world to private and institutional investors. All of that is solved with our platform, which we are going live with our first iteration to the public, hopefully at the end of this month. When we talk about equity freedom, we're talking about the equity that you've paid off in your home that is no longer owned by the bank. It's owned by you, but it's very difficult to access that. In the United States, there's $5.3 trillion worth of equity that's locked up in people's homes. 40% of that is in California. So that's over $2 trillion of equity is sitting in people's homes. And traditionally, the only way that you can access that is by borrowing more money. So there's an enormous number of people that want to be able to tap into that equity. And that really begins the cycle of a new economic era for us. What would happen to the economy if we were able to move assets from real estate into the general economy as a whole? So that's something that we're very excited about. Particularly relevant right now is the auxiliary dwelling unit regulations that were passed into law in January this year. So for any resident in California, it's now legal to convert your garage into a dwelling unit that you can rent out. So think about the possibilities of generating new wealth and new income if you're a California resident, where you can tap into some of the equity in your home without taking on more debt, use that to build out a residential or a granny flat, effectively, that you can then rent out using Airbnb. So our platform enables that financial transaction to happen. And we do that by issuing a token backed by real estate. So if you're a homeowner, the equity that you have in your home is a real estate asset. We take that real estate asset, we put it into a tax-efficient structure that meets all of the current securities regulations, and we issue a token that is backed by that pool of real estate assets. So if we compare it to some of the cryptos that are not backed by real estate assets, we have a much more predictable cryptocurrency that can not only be used as an investment, because as we know, house prices normally go up in value. And if you have a cryptocurrency that's backed by those real estate assets, that should go up in value as well. But we have a cryptocurrency that's more predictable. If it's more predictable, it's less volatile, it's likely to be used as a payment mechanism as well as something like Bitcoin. So we're out there with Bitcoin very much in our sights, and we feel we can compete because we can provide predictability and stability. And that's where the market is moving. The third problem that we solve is for those of you that want to get access to specific real estate investments and want to avoid having to go through funds or real estate managers. This is our secret sauce. We have a patented or a patent pending platform that allows investors to go onto our site, register, fund their account, and then buy fractional interests in specific properties, initially in California, over time across the rest of the United States and then the world. So you'll be able to go in, click on a particular house or a particular piece of real estate and buy $10 worth of that. You could cherry pick homes, you could go to celebrities' homes, you can buy as much or as little as you want, And that's attractive to individual investors. It's also attractive to institutional investors who want to build a targeted portfolio of real estate according to their research, rather than just relying on fund managers. The other important thing is liquidity. So our platform not only allows you to buy these interests in real estate, but to sell them. And the great thing about real estate is it's a great investment, but it's always very difficult to sell. It's an illiquid asset. So our platform uses cryptocurrency and the blockchain to turn an illiquid asset into a liquid and tradable asset. And that's the quantum leap. Excuse the pun. Finally, thank you. Finally, it's a tough crowd. Imagine Zillow meeting Monopoly meeting swipe left and swipe right. You don't necessarily need to build a portfolio with money. For those of you familiar with paper trading in stock markets, you can look at all of the assets that we'll have in our portfolio, and they could be thousands and thousands of assets over time. And you can build a model portfolio that allows you to predict the future potential growth of a particular class of assets. And that's very powerful, not only to individuals and fund managers, but for those of you that have children, where you want to introduce them to the concept of real estate and investing. It's useful as a game. So we have a whole gamification layer that we're building in, where you don't need to spend any money, but as a member of our platform, you'll be able to go in and take a view on swiping and moving these properties into your portfolio and see how they perform over time. Because every 3 months, we revalue all the properties in our portfolio. All of this is based on securities laws. We're all familiar with the ICO boom that happened 18 months, 2 years ago, that put $20 billion worth or so of capital into the blockchain economy. Everything that we do here is in accordance with the current financial regulatory environments in the United States, which is one of the strictest financial requirements in the world. We've built our platform to enable our token, which is a security, to be traded globally. Now that's going to take time, but the reason it's exciting is because we think we're at the beginning of what we described as a tsunami of change in global securities laws. And that's really where the interesting developments will be in the future. And you've noticed that the names of these types of instruments change. We start with tokens and ICOs. I think everybody now is more familiar and more comfortable with the term digital securities offering, because it combines the digital nature of the blockchain with the importance and the stability and the regulatory oversight of securities. Over the last year or 18 months, we've seen an explosion of infrastructure players in the securities world that are providing all of the necessary components to enable assets to be tokenized and made liquid. And those assets are not restricted to real estate. It can be art, it can be classic cars, it can be anything that has value that traditionally is illiquid and difficult to trade. Tokenization and all of these players operating within a global securities framework will enable mass liquidity for traditionally illiquid instruments. And that's why I think we're entering a golden age of innovation. And that's where the $60 or $70 trillion securities market is very much in the gun sights of tokenization and the blockchain, because it provides more efficiency, it provides lower cost of transaction, and it opens the world, particularly those that are unbanked, to the ability to raise capital and to move the value of assets around without the traditional cost and inefficiencies that are associated with the current infrastructure. So we believe we're very much at the beginning of something that is long-term, is seismic in terms of the way that it's going to change securities laws. It's about time, and real estate, for example, as one asset class, will be dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century. But when that happens, we're going to see a change for all of us in terms of the way that these types of assets are traded. We go live with our platform in 3 to 4 weeks' time. We are probably the first, if not one of the first companies in the world to be able to offer a truly tokenized platform where people can go on, fill out the form, and be issued tokenized securities that are held in trust for them by a registered custodian. and we have a very exciting roadmap ahead of us. To all of our investors, thank you very much for your support. We are delighted to be able to provide this update to you, and we look forward to what will be a very interesting and exciting ride in the next few years.